This is a story that never was, a scenario that never happened. Welcome to S.T.A.R.S. untold story. After the nightmare in the Arklay Mountains mansion, Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield of S.T.A.R.S. thought their ordeal was over. Though after a month of investigation into Umbrella's activities in Europe, Jill and Chris returned to Raccoon City together. The month was September, and upon returning, they could not believe what had happened, though they knew who was responsible. Before an unforeseen accident separated them, they both decided to meet at the police station to collect their evidence on Umbrella and investigate further. Though Umbrella were not silly, they had been keeping tabs on Jill and Chris and had something in mind for the S.T.A.R.S. members. They unleashed a new project, the Nemesis, into the city to track Chris and Jill and eliminate them before trying to expose them further. After slowly making his way around the streets, trying to find a way to reach the station, Chris remembered that there was a way to gain entry to the police station through the sewers, and finding an avenue to the police station through the streets was currently proving difficult. Though as Chris would find himself, the sewers was not exactly an easy route to the station. Before making the trip to the RPD, Jill thought it wise to find her commanding officer and chief of police, Brian Irons, who for the last few months had spent all his time in his self-funded orphanage. It was on the way to the station, and Jill thought there would be strength in numbers, though upon arriving, it was empty. No children, no staff, until she found the chief, who was infected and died right in front of her. Chris found an entrance to the sewers and slowly made his way through, destroying these bizarre sewer creatures to keep moving forward. He was growing worried for Jill. They were partners. They'd always worked side by side. His determination for seeing her again and seeing Umbrella's downfall kept him going. After what had happened in the mansion, Chris was still surprised by the creatures he was seeing in front of his eyes. After getting out of the orphanage, Jill was close to the police station after making her way through crowds of zombies. As she exited a car park, the Nemesis found her, screaming, "S.T.A.R.S!" The monster attacked her. It was pure strength and made for a tough encounter, though Jill knew how to deal with these creatures from the mansion incident and managed to fend it off for now. She kept running and made it to the station, dodging undead as she went. However, much like the rest of the city, the station was dead, crawling with zombies. After some exploring, she was saved by a good colleague, Marvin, who was certainly infected.
Watch out!
You alright?
Yeah.
You're safe. For now.
Jill told him what would happen after a bite. She'd seen it enough times to know the signs. Marvin told her to go, and she did, whilst also letting him know that once he turns, she'll put him out of his misery. Jill was making sure to stay focused on the task at hand and retrieving their evidence on Umbrella from the mansion incident. It was stored on S.T.A.R.S. computer in their office, but Jill needed a USB to take the information, so her search for the USB began. Whilst Chris was close to finding the sewer entrance to the station, he was taken by surprise by a horrifying creature. It was screaming in agony and began attacking Chris. With a large pipe in one hand, the creature was smashing everything in sight and aiming for Chris. He barely managed to make it out before the creature fell over the edge. Onwards to the station, Chris then found himself underneath the police station, and arrived at the police cells that were used to house criminals for short periods. In there he met a reporter, Ben, who told him about a scientist that worked for Umbrella that was down here, and a lab that was potentially even closer. Chris was unsure whether to trust him or not. But as he was locked up, why would he lie? He knew he couldn't pass up this opportunity to take Umbrella down. He decided to follow the reporter's tip and find the scientist. Jill's search for the USB to take the incriminating evidence of Umbrella was proving tougher than she had anticipated, with the Nemesis catching her at every available opportunity. While she was able to stun it at times, it would never go down for long. Its loud footsteps and cries of S.T.A.R.S were growing more frequent. It wasn't until Jill made her way down to the interrogation room that she came across a strange box, which may have what she needed inside, but it could not be opened by normal means. With luck on his side, as Chris went further in the underground sewers, he found the scientist, though they weren't best pleased to see the S.T.A.R.S member chasing them down, and she managed to get a shot off at Chris, to which he collapsed against the wall and fell unconscious. Jill always thought the police station was one of the more stranger buildings in Raccoon City, with its expensive art pieces and decor, this coming from the chief's love of art. So she checked out the art room to find a statue with a scepter and a red jewel in it. Putting two and two together, she grabbed the scepter and looked for a way to remove the jewel. Succeeding seeing a switch on its other side, the red jewel fell out. She put it in the strange box's indentation hole of the lid. It revealed the S.T.A.R.S badge and USB. Jill felt elated and rushed to the S.T.A.R.S office to collect the data she needed. Her ordeal was almost over. After regaining consciousness, Chris bandaged himself up and found an Umbrella cable car. He had a good bet of where it might take him, and he was right. He was in the Umbrella Labs, the Nest, as the voiceover stated.
Welcome to Nest.
Making his way around, Chris was overwhelmed by what he found in the Umbrella Labs. Research papers, documents of experiments. If what they already had on Umbrella wasn't enough, Chris knew gathering evidence right from the lab would be the cherry on the cake for Umbrella's downfall. Though there weren't just zombies to contend with in the lab, lickers and ivy zombies, to name a few, were proving difficult for Chris, slowing him down at every turn. He also needed to find that female scientist so she could explain herself. Jill headed over fast to the S.T.A.R.S office, not troubling herself with zombies in her way. She grabbed the data she needed and uploaded it to the USB. On her exit, however, the Nemesis found her once again. Jill tried to fight it off with her grenade launcher. It appeared the Nemesis was weakening. Chris received a message from Jill on their radio, telling him to meet up outside the city soon. With Chris knowing that Jill was okay, it made him even more determined to make sure that Umbrella was taken down. After getting multiple level upgrades on the wristband needed for entry to certain areas of the lab, Chris made his way to the west wing. Dead bodies littered the floors as he made his way, gathering evidence where he could, before coming across that wretched monster once more. It smashed through the ceiling on Umbrella Labs. It had mutated further, and Chris was having flashbacks of the mansion. The tyrant. The roof. The explosion. He soon snapped out of it when the scientist appeared behind him, raising a weapon to the beast. She began firing at him.
What the hell's going on?
Sorry, William. Left me no choice.
And the creature fell. After which she explained herself. Her name was Annette Birkin, husband to William, an Umbrella scientist who created the G-Virus. He infected himself and became that creature. Chris quizzed her on the mansion incident, and she said that William Birkin played his part in the mansion incident as well, which enraged Chris. Before he could act, the creature that was once William Burke grabbed Annette and threw her to one side. With the beast staring Chris down, Annette managed to get herself to her feet and condemn Chris to death by lowering the platform, trapping him and her former husband, the monster of pure strength, with its sight set on Chris. After confirmation with Chris about the situation they were both in, she headed for the main doors, knowing full well that there were zombies still out on the streets, though she knew it would be the fastest way, although Nemesis was still behind her. She knew she would have to put it down for good. And with a final shot of a grenade launcher, it went down in a fiery explosion. Though Jill didn't stick around to find out if it got back up, she ran clear to the main doors. She had made it out. Chris was piling shot after shot into the towering creature above him. It seemed like nothing was damaging him. He began throwing structures at Chris, destroying the lab around him and throwing its claws into him. Luckily no severe wounds, but Chris couldn't keep this up for much longer. Something with this creature had to give. And eventually, with the final shot of his samurai edge handgun into one of the beast's prominent eyes, it fell. He breathed a massive sigh of relief, not just for himself, but for everyone. But before Chris could even think, an emergency alarm sounded in the lab. It was self-destructing. He had to get out fast. As he approached the top of the platform, he saw the scientist again, Annette. She was bleeding out. She was not going to make it. He quizzed her on any and all Umbrella-related activity outside of Raccoon City, so that he could continue his investigation with Jill. He asked her about Wesker, to which she knew little, only what William told her, which wasn't much. Though she was stuttering something as she bled out, mentioning Rockfort. Chris knew that was something to go on, but he couldn't think about it now. Without time to think, Chris saw in one of Dr. Lee's emails on the system of a train that ran out of the lab. He checked the map and headed straight there, knowing Jill was getting out of the station, and they knew to meet up on the outskirts of Raccoon City. After luckily escaping hordes of zombies in the city, Jill managed to hotwire an old police car and made it to a petrol station where they said they would meet up. Jill wasn't surprised to see more zombies in and around the area. She was getting worried about Chris. She hadn't heard anything, and she didn't know where he was. As she began making her exit, a zombie came out of nowhere, and it was right behind her. She saw a shadow by the door. She knew who it was, and she ducked down. Before Jill could even thank Chris, they became surrounded by more zombies. They didn't know how to get out of there, and so they did. They escaped one last time, and off they went to expose Umbrella.